It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Let's get out of here. Aye. Hey everybody, it's Aaron from God a Minute. It's very important that you get tight with Christ. Jesus saves, bro. Yeah, okay. Salvation verses are in my description box below. Also, you can hop into our Discord and hang out with Rapture heads like myself and other people that are waiting for the soon rapturo of the church. Or if you have any questions, please hop in there. The links are always in the videos below. So I was led to this whole study and this whole video by a person with their username DMWEBERLL doing some basic math with 2030, and it got me onto this whole honeycomb kick. So this is a short study, a short video of the thoughts that I've got here. Where do we start? We start with Revelation 13 verse 18. And so I will pop some stuff up here, hopefully later on. So it's written in Greek. In Revelation 13 verse 18, we understand it to be 666, but it's really 600 and then a 60 and then a 6. So 600 in Greek is hexakasioi. And the Greek Strong's number is 1812, but hexakasioi is 600. Hexakanta is 60, and hex is 6. So when it's talking about this mark of the beast, it's actually 600, and then it's 60, and then it's 6. It's not just a straight 666, it's a 660. 6. So the cool thing that this person mentioned was, well, 20 times 30 is 600. 20 times 3 is 60. 2 times 3 is 6. So 2030 is a perfect fit to fit this whole Revelation 13 verse 18. Also, 2 times 3, well, we have 23 as well, 7 years back from 2030. And we've got ourselves a very exciting mathematical situation ending with the 2030. And it's so interesting that it's hexa, 660 and 6. They all start with hex or hexa. Hex means 6. So we've got this other picture here with the hexagon, and I'll show you right here, just in case this is better than the picture I'm going to present later. But if we look at this, we have, if we, for example, use the measure of 6, let's just say 6 feet, it would be 6 feet on the outside, 6 feet by 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 6 feet, and the angles would be 60-degree angles in a hexagon. And the center angles would be 60. So all the triangles would be 60-degree angles, interior angles, and it would also be 120 right here. 60 plus 60 is 120. So isn't it fascinating that Revelation 13 is using the word hex, and then the 6s are just all over the place? If you were to go even further and make more angles, the inner angles would be 30, and here we are dealing with 2030. If you just look at the natural hexagon, it'd be a total of 120. And how many Jubilee cycles has it been since the fall of man? We are suspecting that it's 120 Jubilee cycles since Adam fell to 2030. So 2030 minus 120 Jubilee cycles, which would be the angle of 120 in this hexagon. Hopefully I haven't lost you yet, but the whole point of this is this. Hexagon, 6-sided shape, and the Greek words are hexa, hexa, hexa. Hexa something for 600, hexa something for 60, and just simply hex for 6. So beehive clusters are in the shape of a hexagon. What's going on with that? What's going on with the beehive cluster? It's in the shape of a hexagon. So now what we do is we recognize that Revelation 13:18 is talking about 600, 60, and 6, all starting with the word hexa, and then we see this beehive cluster, or this beehive, bees make honey with hexagon shapes, okay? And so I just kind of quickly skimmed through some honey and honeycomb verses in the Bible, and so I will just reference them. I won't read them thoroughly. Maybe a few of them I will read thoroughly, but we'll see how this goes. I've got like 10 or 15 verses listed here. Luke 24, verse 42. One of the last things that Jesus eats before he zips out of here on Ascension Day. The last thing that he eats, he asks for some food, and he starts eating not only honey, but honeycomb, it says in Luke 24, verse 42. Honeycomb. Now, like, what's up with that? Let's just acknowledge the fact that, okay, he's hungry. He wants a honeycomb. Or they just offer him a honeycomb. Why? Why a honeycomb? Why a honeycomb? Why a hexagon? Why is Jesus doing this? I think he's trying to point to something, that he's coming back at a certain time. And again, a hexagon seems to be pointing to 2030. So here he is eating a honeycomb, a six-sided shape that is just perfectly divisible and mathematically connected to 20 and a 30. Perfect. I think he's giving us a hint of his timing. That's my opinion. If we hop into another verse, Matthew 3, verse 4, as well as Mark 1, verse 6, we see John the Baptist. What does he eat? He eats wild honey. And of course, he gets his honey from honeycomb. So he's being introduced as the guy that eats honey. Jesus is giving the farewell, eating honeycomb. So honey starts the ministry of John, and honey ends the ministry of Jesus. Honeycomb. That's pretty cool. Revelation 10 is basically, the angel of the Lord comes and he tells John to eat the scroll, and it's sweet as honey to his mouth and bitter to his stomach. So we've got this. First comes the honey, then comes the bitterness. And then we have Ezekiel 3, verse 3. Same kind of theme here. It was in my mouth like honey in sweetness. And then eventually there was a bitterness thing later on in that chapter. So we go on to Exodus 3, verse 8. And really the whole Old Testament too. It's really interesting, that a whole other long-winded study. But the land that God is promising them when he's taking them out of Exodus is the land flowing with milk and honey. Milk and honey. Not just milk and anything, it's honey. Honey is the theme of the land that they are going to. And of course, if you remember my video, it's been basically 7 cycles of 490 from 2030. If you minus 700 and from 2030, if you minus 7 cycles of 490, that gets you right down to what we suspect to be the year that they actually passed over the Jordan and started to divide up the land to the different tribes. So, and this was defined as the land flowing with milk and honey. We have also, if we go to the Numbers 13 and Numbers 14, it's the spies. They spy out the land. This is the same story, but just 40 years before it, more or less. 38 years more before it, actually. And so what we have here is the spies coming back, and what's the report? It's a land flowing with milk and honey. And it's Caleb and Joshua, that, and Numbers 14, verse 8, that says, let's do this. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. God promised us that it's going to be good. Like, what are you guys doing? Why you guys, why are you guys dismissing this? But they used the word honey to define the land that they're going to. Joshua 5, verse 6 is kind of a reminder of all that. It's a reminder of they're going into the land of milk and honey after 40 years of being in the wilderness. Judges 14. This is themed off Samson's riddle. There's a whole lot of study there. I'm very excited about the Samson's riddle because I think it relates to our timing of our departure. But there's a whole riddle in there. We won't get into it too heavily here, but basically Samson takes honey out of the lion's mouth, and there's a reference to bees there as well in that, chapter 14. And after 7 days, they figure out the riddle, and they tell him it's honey, and then he kills 30 people. There's a lot of math there. Please check out my videos of around a month ago on Samson's riddle and stuff like that. But again, he takes honey out of the lion's mouth. And the question here could be, now that we've talked about honey, could honey represent the church? Could honey represent the church? It's possible. Taken out of the lion's mouth before the 7-day feast of Samson, I think it could be the first thing with the scrolls. The honey comes first, and then the bitterness comes second. Could the church be represented through honey? It's a good question. I'm not quite sure. Food for thought. 1 Samuel 14, Saul's rash oath. So, again, a long story there, but Saul basically says that nobody can eat honey today. Nobody can eat honey, nobody can eat anything today. Jonathan didn't hear this oath that Saul said, and if anybody eats anything today, he's going to die. And Jonathan goes and eats honey. And at the end of it, Jonathan doesn't die because his buddies stick up for him, more or less. But it's an interesting, because Saul is kind of a bit of a type and shadow of an antichrist there. And so he's the guy that says nobody can eat, and Jonathan eats honey. So I think that's pretty interesting there. 2 Chronicles 31 verse 5. I thought this was really neat. The first fruits of grain, wine, oil, and honey. So honey, in this situation, this is after Hezekiah, I think it was, they celebrated Passover for 2 weeks, was it? Yeah, I think so. But the point is, it mentions honey in the category of first fruits in 2 Chronicles 31 verse 5. First fruits of grain, wine, oil, and honey. Really, really neat. Psalm 19, 9 through 10. It's really cool. It's talking about the Son of Righteousness, and but the interesting thing is it ties it to judgment. Maybe I'll actually read that particular verse. So, Psalm 19, verse 9 and 10. Okay, here it is. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them your servant is warned. So it's mentioning judgments, and then it's mentioning much finer than gold. Gold is actually refined at a temperature of 1948 Fahrenheit. That's when it starts to melt. And we know the story of 1948. Sweeter also than honey and honeycomb. And it's referring to judgments, and 2030 is going to be a form of judgment, isn't it? So I think that's really awesome that it's in Psalm 19. And then also earlier in Psalm 19, in them he has set a tabernacle for the sun, S-U-N, which is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices like a strong man to run its race. Samson was that strong man who took the honey out of the lion. Samson was a type of Christ. Samson means sunlight, Shamshon, sunlight, and Christ was the sun that came into the world on the 4th day. Anyway, I find it really great that honeycomb is in Psalm 19. He's referencing that here. What else we got? We got Proverbs 24 verse 13. Honeycomb. Mentioning honeycomb, and let's see, let me read it. Let me get it. Proverbs 24 verse 13. My son, eat honey because it is good, and the honeycomb which is sweet to your taste. Very good. So shall knowledge of wisdom be to your soul. Oh yeah, this is the chapter of wisdom, and he throws in honeycomb in the mix of all this. It's almost like it was hidden. In the next chapter, I think this was really neat too. So, Proverbs 25, verse 2, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings is to search it out. But then, in verse 16 of this chapter, have you found honey? Eat only as much as you need, lest you be filled with it. So, isn't this interesting that it's the glory of kings to search out a matter, and it's talking about honey in this very same chapter? I think it's neat. Okay, 3 more areas to share with you. Song of Solomon. This is probably the most exciting thing too. Very bride vibe, very, romance vibe going on. Song of Solomon 4 verse 1. Behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. You have doves. No, it's 4:11. This is what I wanted it to read. Okay, this is it. Your lips, O my spouse, drip as the honeycomb. Okay, so you're my spouse. Your lips are like the honeycomb. Descriptive. Spouse, honeycomb. Spouse, honeycomb. Honey and milk are under your tongue. Okay, and then a few verses later, Song of Solomon 5 verse 1. I have come to my garden, my sister, my spouse. I have gathered my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunk my wine with my milk. And the last passage that I have here written is, this is the Emmanuel prophecy, and Isaiah 7 verse 14. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and he shall be called Emmanuel. Okay, so what's he going to eat? It says, curds and honey he shall eat. Well, why are we even mentioning what he's going to eat? Curds and honey. He shall eat that, and he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. I find it very interesting that here we have a prophecy of Emmanuel, and by the way, he's going to eat curds and honey. Honey of all things. Why are we mentioning this? So, to recap, to sum this all up, again, I got on this kick because of a comment. 2030, the year 2030, 20 times 30 is 600. 20 times 3 is 60. 2 times 3 is 6. That's the number we find in Revelation 8:13 verse 18. It's a hexagon. All the angles of a hexagon is really encompassing a 2030 mathematical combination. Bees make honey. Jesus ate honeycomb at the end of his ministry, as if, for me, it's a hint. It's a, by the way, guys, I'm eating honeycomb. It's my hint. I'm not just randomly eating a piece of honeycomb. I mean, he could have eaten anything at the end of his ministry. John could have eaten anything at the beginning of his ministry. We have Song of Solomon combining the word honeycomb with spouse. We have honey taken out of the lion's mouth before this 7-day feast in the book in Judges 14. The spice, and it's called the land flowing with milk and honey. And we are waiting to enter our promised land with milk and honey. Hopefully the honey is the church and it's taken out before this 7 years that is about to come. And so that's the basics right there. Honeycomb, hexagon, 6-sided shape. The math looks real good for 2030. I hope this encouraged you. I hope this made sense. Love you very much. Again, get into a relationship with Jesus Christ, and we'll be flying soon. Okay? Love you. Take it easy. Go Jesus, go. Adios.